Hello and welcome to Module 7, Public Policy and Management. This module will focus primarily on the reality of public policy making in America and the steps in the public policy making process. So, in our complex and fragmented political system, there's often no single dominant majority capable of determining the appropriate policy for all types of public programs and at all levels of government. So, however, there are strong expectations that public programs will be efficiently managed and achieve results. So, effective management requires expertise, ethics, motivation, executive and managerial leadership skills, as well as sound decision making regarding policy, organizational structure, performance management, personnel selection, and budgeting. So, the reality of public policy making in America is often different from the public's expectations and perceptions. Among the most enduring myths about policymaking are the following. First, governments have clearly defined policies established in advance on most problems. Yeah, not the case. Number two, policies are established deliberately. Yeah, not the case. Third, all actions follow existing policies. If we know anything from current policymaking process, if we know anything from past problems facing the United States, we know that definitely is not the case. Number four, the general public accurately perceives and understands policies. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, your common American has a very little understanding sometimes of the public policy making and really understanding policies once they're drafted by policymakers. And fifth, policies are widely agreed upon and supported. Definitely not the case. There are very few bipartisan initiatives and policies that happen right in Congress. We know that Republicans and Democrats differ a lot on many issues at the federal, state, and local level. So technically, none of these statements is entirely true. So many people contribute many different perspectives to each policy as it develops. But managers are expected to manage well despite the chaos, right? And so often policies are categorized according to their basic rationales, impacts on society, and the functions of the agencies carrying out that policy. So, in addition to categorizing policies by function, there are four types of policies that can be classified by their impact. And they are distributive, redistributive, regulatory, and self regulatory. So, governments try to create policymaking environments for reasons other than increasing administrative efficiency or affecting policy outcomes. And these reasons can be ideological or pragmatic, including facilitating new partnerships with private and nonprofit entities. And such reasons can and do often conflict with each other during the public policy making process, right? And so, a classic example of this conflict is the politics administration dichotomy, which refers to a trade off between political values and administrative values in public administration. It's something that we talked about in earlier modules. So many public agencies have been applying various performance management concepts as to manage more like competitive market-based businesses, and they're discovering the connection between politics and the private sector. However, public agencies are inhibited in their ability to run operations strictly like a business because they must serve broad social interests and adhere to the conventions of government. So, overall, the policymaking process is highly decentralized, largely uncoordinated, complex, competitive. It's highly incremental and specialized. And This frequently produces inconsistent and sometimes contradictory policies, right? And so, where policymaking is centralized, it often occurs in four stages. And that is the legislative stage, and that's drafting and enacting legislation. Stage two is the administrative stage, and that's writing rules and regulations which govern applications of the law. The third stage is implementation, and that's affecting the program. And the fourth stage is review, and that essentially is overseeing the implementation of policy by Congress, the courts, or both. Now, keep in mind that policy making is a cyclical process, right? And this cyclical process incurs or details or comprises of five stages, right? And that's the agenda setting as stage one. And stage two is policy formulation. Stage three is policy adoption. Stage four is policy implementation. And stage five is policy evaluation. And this is something you should familiarize yourself with because you'll definitely be seeing this in future courses in public administration. And so keep in mind that stage one, which is referred to as agenda setting, that's public attention focuses on a public problem or issue. Officials' words and actions help focus attention, keeping in mind that not everything gets onto the agenda, right, of policymakers, right? And so there has to be sometimes public opinion drives that. Interest groups drive what gets on the agenda of policymakers. And stage two is policy formulation, right? And so policymakers in the legislature and the bureaucracy take up the issue. They create legislative, regulatory, or programmatic strategies to address the problem. Stage three is policy adoption. And this is where policymakers formally adopt a policy solution, usually in the form of legislation or rules. And then we have stage four, which is policy implementation. And this is where government agencies begin the job of making the policy work by establishing procedures, writing guidance documents, or issuing grants and aid to other governments. And then we have stage five, which is policy evaluation. Right, this is where policy analysts inside and outside of government determine whether the policy is addressing the problem and whether implementation is proceeding well. And at this stage, they may recommend revisions in the agenda or in the formulation of policy or in its implementation, right? And keep in mind that revisions can occur also at the policy formulation stage and also at the revision stage. So again, the purpose of this module really is to familiarize yourself with the reality of public policy making in America and also the steps in the public policy making process. So again, as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to give me a phone call or send me or shoot me an email. Look forward to seeing you next week.